So Michael Davis is here today to talk about marketing on the internet and marketing specifically within Google. He is the founder and developer of Go Hire. He's the author of Go Hire on Google, Internet Marketing Secrets for Business Owners, and he's the president of Cowtown Executives Association. In addition to those, Michael is also a consultant and speaker in the growing field of online marketing for local businesses. He has been featured in industry publications such as the local Internet Marketing Association. He has served as highlighted panel members at education events like today. And then he also works with other local incubators and accelerators and has worked at industry summits before. And so we're very excited to have him here today and that he carved out some time just for our community. And so without further ado, Michael, if you would like to go ahead. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. But from you and Bruce, and it was really kind. Well, we can just dive right in if that works for y'all. But yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm actually an RN. I worked at Cook Children's Hospital for 4 years, and my business partner I originally started with is Jeremy Gossman, who's on this call. And Jeremy and I, just life took us in different directions for a bit, but hit 10 years this last May, and Jeremy and I are back together again doing online marketing. I continue to do it, so did he, but we are now joined forces again, which is fantastic, and excited about kind of where we are with everything. So anyway, that's a little bit about me and my background. I'm born and raised in Oklahoma, but lived in Fort Worth now for the last 20 years. So officially home. So we're going to talk about, of course, internet marketing. And one of the things that a lot of people just don't think of is your website. And your website is your #1 marketing tool. It is never calls in sick. It's on 24/7, 365, and it's available. It is to tell your story, who you are, what you do, what your company does, and so on. So unless you're somebody like Garmin who recently got hacked, a ransomware or something like that, otherwise your website should be up and running and continuing to be an advertisement opportunity for you and your business. And so, I mean, there are hordes of just different opportunities in online advertising. And so it looks overwhelming when you think of, okay, there are different things you can do. Well, website development, that's certainly a start. SEO. And so some of this may be a little basic for some of you, and some of this is brand new. But search engine optimization is essentially getting your website tailored for the search engines like Google and explaining to Google what your website's about. Content writing, including articles and blogs. And then you've got things like display advertising. And I'll go into display just a little bit more here shortly and really what that is. Of course, you got Google Ads. And the Google My Business section, that's your map section that you see. And then you have Google Local Services. That's a newer piece of what Google's offering, and it's to a limited number of industries. And I'll kind of explain some of that too. There's video marketing. Google owns YouTube. That's something, another form of advertisement, something you can really get into, especially if you do a lot of video. There's a whole lot of benefit with that. Directory listings. So you have thousands of directories online, but some of your major ones, you think of Yahoo, or Bing or whatever, and then you think of yp.com for Yellow Pages, or just Yelp. I mean, these are different types of directory listings, and so those are areas to market. And then Facebook ads, and you can see some of these others, obviously social media and different email campaigns or text message campaigns and so on. So there's a lot involved, a lot of different directions to go, but kind of finding out what is in your wheelhouse for your business, that's ideal. So moving on into, this is the #1 question, or the primary question, I guess I should say, that I get is like, how do you get to page 1? And so there's a lot of misunderstandings of how you get to page 1 of Google. And some people think, oh, you have more people going to your website, or Google likes you better because you have XYZ on your website, or whatever it is. But really, it's how does your website speak to Google and speak to what somebody's doing a search for? And that is what stands out. So the big piece on this, there are over 200 factors that Google takes into consideration when determining rankings and who's going to show up on page 1 and why somebody would be on page 1 as opposed to page 2 or 3 or wherever they're going to be. And so this is a really fast information that Google's trying to decipher and give the best search results for what they think somebody is searching for. So again, it just really comes down to how does your website speak to Google, that what your website's about, essentially. So you can look at really what the breakdown looks at. Yahoo and Bing, they're combined. And so we're really looking at a third of all searches, essentially, more or less, of course, go there. And then over 2/3 of all searches is Google. So, I mean, they're the 2,000-pound gorilla. I mean, we cater to what Google wants and do what Google wants, do what they say, and so on, ultimately for Google purposes. Yahoo, Bing, they just kind of fall right in behind. But if you think about it, if you ever go in and you do a Google search and you're looking for, let's just say you're looking for a plumber, and you type in plumbing Fort Worth or wherever you happen to be, you're going to, in all likelihood, 98% likelihood, you're going to do business with somebody on page 1. You may be curious and look at page 2 or 3, but when it comes time to actually make a phone call, fill out a form, whatever, you're going to do that with those on page 1. So it's imperative really to be there and not to be further back. Again, you may be curious and look deeper, but when it comes time to make a decision, it's going to be somebody on page 1. And so what Google is doing, it's doing SEO, or that search engine optimization, and getting the relevant content and relevant information up front and communicating with Google is more difficult now than really it's been. I mean, Google changes the rules here and there. And so a lot of companies have to adapt to those rules. But one of the things that has been consistent with them is content. And it is just, content is the primary thing for what Google is looking for. And so it's relevant content with whatever the company is. And so you're a plumber, you're going to want to talk about plumbing and different types of plumbing services. You're going to also want to list your location. So you're in Fort Worth and you only service Fort Worth. Well, you may not want to mention Arlington or South Lake or someplace like that. So having your location and having the right terms that people are looking for, that people are searching for your business, is incredibly important. And a lot of that stuff that's in your content, meaning articles, blogs, and also on the back end of the website, the SEO portion, when you go in and you do some of that stuff where the website's built. There's a lot here, obviously. So if you all have questions, please feel free to reach out, because I'm moving kind of quick. There's just a lot, there's a lot of information, but content it's one of the major pieces for your regular, ordinary type of search results that Google's looking for. But content also matters for some other pieces that I can get into in a moment. That's going to be like social media. It's going to be your Google Maps section. That also makes a difference. So we'll talk a little bit more on some of that here shortly. Devin, you have a question?
Michael. Yeah, so we had a question about how does like Baidu and the other kind of global search engines stack up against Google? And I know I did a little bit of researching on this earlier, but did you have anything you wanted to say about those ones?
Globally speaking, Google is still, they're global, of course, but compared to some of the other search engines overseas, honestly, it would be difficult for me to explain or to talk about just with confidence. And so I'd be actually curious, even Devin, what did you learn on that, or with some of your research, or what did you see?
And for everybody, I can add some more information about Baidu later. I actually did a whole research paper on them in college for some reason, but I'm pretty sure when I was studying like globally, Google is about 70%, and then Bing, Yahoo follow after that. And then I think Baidu is around like a 10 to 13%. But I can attach a graph on that in the follow-up email that we send for more questions on that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, globally, it's that one. That's a great question. Just know Google still incredibly important, even outside the US, but good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
So talking about content and the importance of content, and it's rather important. We'll leave it at that. And if you have more questions on content and really what I'm referring to, and it's everything from just your text on your website to actual, like I mentioned, articles and blogs that you can post as well, and even across your social media sites. So we've all seen this, and we've all seen kind of the breakdown of Google and what it looks like when we all go there. And so at the very top, you're going to see typically 1 to about 4 ads. And so at the top, it just says ads. So people are paying for being in that location, being at the top. So every time somebody goes in and clicks on an ad, that's your pay per click. You're paying every time somebody clicks on it. And it can be anywhere from dollars, to say $1, up to, I mean, it could be $100, depending on really the importance of that and the competition of that particular ad. So those are the ads themselves and how that works. Again, you're paying by the click. And then you got the Google Map My Business listing, or the Google Maps section. And in that particular area, the majority, and it's over 90% of businesses do not properly handle that section well. And it is a free tool. And if you do, the one absolute easiest, if you want to say it that way even, area for a business to grow is in that section right there, in the Google My Business listing. And what that means is go in there and claim your business. It'll say, it'll give you that option. If you type in your business name on the right side, it'll give you your information. And you want to just verify that it's been accepted, like you've accepted that as the owner of that particular business. And then you want to go in there. You want to add your hours, add coupons, add your images, add video, and the things that it provides you opportunity to be able to add information to. You want to do that, and so that's one of the big pieces that you really would be able to expand on and really benefit your company. It also gives you, like social media, gives you the opportunity to be able to put content in there along with images. And so that's again, just a huge piece that can be extremely beneficial for a business. Underneath that map section, you have your regular general organic search results. And so you have those, or typically 10 of them, and then it goes on into the next page. You still are on next page for me, you're still page 1 for everyone else. And then you have typically more ads at the bottom. So those people who are paying for that ad space. And then what you see now, this is one of the newer areas that Google has been providing. So this is Google Local Services. So you see the ads right underneath this blog, this red block that I have. We just talked about the ads. Well, now above that section are these Google Local Services. And so the ads down below, again, you're paying every time somebody clicks on that. The area above that, you're actually paying by the phone call. You're actually paying by the actual lead. So here I typed in electrician Hurst or whatever it may be. That phone number that's listed for like Milestone Electric, that phone number underneath that. I'm sorry if everybody's singing the jingle in their head right now because it's in my head already. And then 24/7 electrical services, but that phone number there, those numbers are run by Google. And so Google actually records those calls for you. So you can go in there and you can listen to these calls. Maybe you need some additional training for your staff who are answering the phones, or you realize that they're handling the calls extremely well. But essentially how that works though is you pay by the lead. So whereas the ads underneath, when you pay by the click, again, that can be $1, but most of them are usually going to run anywhere from $3 to about 20, 25, $30. That's typically what those are going to run. These particular ads up above, for electrical services, are going to run about $20 a phone call. And then some industries like AC or AC repair can be pushing around $40 a phone call. While that sounds high, these are people who are typically looking for somebody right away. They're not shopping around. It's 100 degrees outside here in Fort Worth, and if your air conditioning went out, you're probably making a phone call pretty quick, and you're not going to be shopping around. So it's like, how fast can I get somebody out here? And so what Google did with his Google Local Services is trying to find companies that are trustworthy. So it says Google Guaranteed in the middle of it. Well, the purpose for that is that Google does a background check on the owner on the business and on one technician. And so that's what the purpose of this is to build trust with homeowners or business owners to know, okay, they have been through a process with Google, and these are people who are trustworthy to do business with. That's what the whole purpose of this is. And anyway, it's completely changing the landscape for search results and so on, just as opposed to going to clicks or going with phone calls. So you can pay, you can actually do these phone calls and monitor them yourself, or you can pay a company to monitor the phone calls for you. And here, the nice thing about this is that you can actually get, let's say you got a phone call and somebody says, what are your hours? So if you're given those hours and then you hang up, well, you don't want to pay $20 for that. So what they do is that you can dispute the calls, so you get that money back. But so the ones that are legitimate leads, you get charged for. So that's enough on Google Local Services. It's a huge piece that Google's really tackling, and so much so that, as you can see here, upper left corner says Google Local Service ads. And so these are the industries on the right side that Google offers these types of ads space for. And so everything from event planners to AC, or it says HVAC, roofer, even tutor, and so on. But there are some of these things that are not available in our area for Fort Worth. So these are the ones that are not available. So chiropractor, financial planning, immigration lawyer, they're just not available yet. So Google's opening those things up over time. And one thing I just noticed today that's not listed in here, it's listed on another page of Google's local services, but fencing, or fence company. Actually, fence company is brand new for our area. And there are only 2 companies who are advertising there right now. So if you know a fence company, this would be a great area for them to advertise and to jump in on. So estimated cost per click, I told you some of that. It can be really high on some of those, on the pay-per-click ads, not the local services, but the PPC, the pay-per-click. So some of those can be expensive, but when somebody comes into your website and then they leave your website, 98% of people are doing that. So they're coming in, they're taking off, and how do you stop that leaky bucket? How do you get them back? And so one of the things is display advertising. And I kind of briefly mentioned that. Those creepy ads, and I got to say creepy ads, but those ads that whenever you go to a website you have interest in, and you leave that website. You say you're looking around you're an Academy's website or Macy's website, you're looking for a particular item, but you leave that website and you go to Yahoo, or you go to another news source, or go weather.com or whatever. And these types of ads follow you around for what it is that you just got through looking for. And usually these are dynamic. It'll be an A side and a B side, and they'll flip back and forth. So that's what these ads are for, is to get back in front of the person, to bring them back to the website. And so you're building a brand, you're getting your message out there. They're seeing the business name, seeing the logo, seeing the color scheme, and you're building that process for them. So when that time comes for them to have interest in doing business with you, you're front and center. So that's the retargeting. We're display ads. We're retargeting them, going back after them to bring them back to the website. And then there's a whole other area called prospecting. And so let's say you know of a particular area, type of client that you're interested in. You're a particular ISD, and you want to go and focus on Fort Worth ISD, or a country club, and you want to focus directly on a particular country club. You can put these ads directly for a specific address. So somebody's in your competitor. You can actually, if your competitors down the road, you can put these ads. So if somebody goes into that competitor's website, sitting in a lobby, they can pull up your ads while they're sitting there in your competition's waiting room. So these things are amazing, getting these ads out there. They do compete essentially with Google ads. It's just another way of being able to reach people. I take that back. I said it competes. It's just another way really to be able to reach people, but it's cheaper. So Google ads, we talked about some of cost. These types of ads I'm talking about, they can be considerably less, so $1.50, $1.75, $2.25. It can be quite a bit less. So Devin, do you have a question?
Yeah, real quick, we had a question. I think it was maybe 2 slides back. You were talking about getting your local business listed, and Ken, let me know if this is actually different than the question that you were asking, but it probably was. He was asking, is it possible to get your industry type added?
No,
And Ken, maybe if you need
unfortunately.
to elaborate. Okay.
Unfortunately, so Google's slowly rolling these things out, and like the fence company, even though that one's not mentioned in here, that one is brand new. That wasn't even like it wasn't even on here prior. So it wasn't like his chiropractor that's up here at the top on this one, and then all of a sudden chiropractor showed up. Fence just showed up. Period. So they are slowly introducing these, and Google's actually doing some other funky stuff that's coming out right now, where you can almost bid for these types of positions, which is we're learning more about that. So, and this is a good example. You got 80, let's just say you have 80 air conditioning companies all vying for 3 spots. When you come back here, there are 3 spots right there. You have 8, here it says 50 electricians nearby, 50 plus. So if you got a lot of people trying to vie for that area right there, there's a lot of obviously competition, and it's going to make that a lot more difficult. But there are certain things that Google's looking for. 1, answering the phone call quickly. Number 2, reviews. And so having reviews and building that is incredibly important. So running that process is vital to being at the very front of this. If you got 50, 80 plus companies vying for those positions. And what's interesting is if you look on a mobile, if you look on your cell phone, and you do a search like electrician Hearst or electrician Fort Worth or whatever, there are only 2 positions that Google's going to present you. And it's above the fold, meaning it's the very first 2 things that you see. Like here, you're going to see your whole page, and you're going to see everything with Google from your laptop or from your Mac or your PC. Whereas from your phone, the very first 2 things you're going to see is Google guaranteed and 2 opportunities. So did that answer that question? Okay, excellent. So I kind of mentioned about what these things look like with another form of advertising with the display ads. And so that's just the opportunity to stop that 98% leaving and to help them remember you and to come back to the website. Oftentimes you can add like some type of perceived value. You're going to offer something, a discount or whatever, and that can go into the ad. So somebody's seeing that and it's fantastic and can bring them right back. But I know this is primarily about Google. It's just another way of being able to reach people that it used to only be available to the massive companies, Fortune 500 type of companies. And now it's open to mom and pop businesses, which is fantastic. So kind of start winding some of this down here on this. Internet marketing as a whole, and it's unfortunate, but it almost has a used car sales mentality. Thankfully, you don't have anybody with used car sales on this call, but used cars or internet marketing, it's just people have been taken to the bank, so to speak, by a lot of internet marketing companies. We hear a lot of examples of had an SEO company that took my money and didn't really do anything with it. We didn't get any value behind it and so on. So a lot of them, they'll say something like this, we're going to charge you $100, $300, $500 a month, and we're going to guarantee results. You'll hear that as well sometimes. So it's just red flags should go up, and it's like this. I mean, just like, be careful. You don't know what you're going to see, and who's really going to come knocking on your door or ringing your phone, and just sit there and explain some of these things. So that's a lot of this stuff in a nutshell. I mean, there's so much involved, and I mean, of course you could talk on these things for hours, and I'm sure every one of you could talk on what you do for a living for hours. So just trying to kind of give things in a nutshell on Google and some of the things that Google's looking for, and the different areas of being able to advertise. So what questions do y'all have? We're finishing, I think, a little bit early. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, of course. We actually, we do have one question in the chat, and it's kind of talking about bots and getting bot clicks and stuff like that. And we had a question from Andrew, and he said, how do you know clicks are not from bots? And Andrew, if you need to elaborate on any specifics of that, we can do that.
I assume he's referring to like the ads, like the AdWords, like Google,
I believe
like the pay-per-click.
Yeah. Yes.
And
yeah.
being charged. Yes. So, and what oftentimes Google will do, there'll be situations, and we oftentimes get these questions, like somebody will ask something about, what do you do when a competitor calls? You got a $20 click that's going to come in, and a competitor down the road sees it and clicks and thinks, oh, we're going to click again and we're going to click again. You're essentially mimicking like what a bot would do. Just go in there and just, you're going to software that's going to go in there and just do it all by itself. But Google can recognize things like that, or things that are not ordinary. And especially when you start getting multiple clicks from the same area or the same IP address as well, Google will stop charging you for that, and you'll typically get that money back. So it's not really going to count against you. That's the good news. And so I don't know if you've ever had a problem with Facebook, but like you can't really call Facebook, but Google, you can actually follow up with them. And if you're doing AdWords or you're doing the Google local services, they're fantastic to be able to talk to, and it's usually a very big help. So if you feel like something's unnatural, you feel like something's weird going on, you're getting clicks and they're coming from India or coming from Russia or coming from Mexico or wherever it may be, you're seeing those things, you can take that and even talk to Google about it, but make some adjustments. But the main thing is on your pay-per-click is to have set hours available for when you want those ads run. And that's also going to take out some of that trash. So you're talking about, if you're 8 to 5, you're going to want to maybe keep those hours in that time frame as far as your advertising time frame. Sometimes you can go a little bit longer or a little bit shorter on that, but typically most businesses, you're not going to want to run ads 24/7. And then some people have a call service, and so ads can run 24/7. Like an emergency type situation, like a plumber, you can run ads 24/7, but typically you're going to want daytime hours for that. Did that answer the question for the bots? And I'm assuming again it's pay-per-click that is referring to. Is that right?
Yes, he said.
Okay,
yes.
Excellent.
Awesome. And then we got another question that came in that said, do you have 3 to 4 free recommendations of what you really must do with Google to make a good impact?
Depending on the business, what's funny, I just had this conversation with Jeremy actually a little bit before this call, but we're talking with the client, and one of the concerns was they don't have a storefront. Like, people don't go into this particular business, but it's still extremely relevant to be on page 1 of Google. And so that's one of the major pieces. Even though somebody's not going to go knock on an electrician's door or a plumber's door, they're going to make those phone calls instead. It's still a very viable option to be a part of. And so I would certainly say the Google Maps section. If you want the organic search results, you typically, unless you're a really unique business, but that's typically a long-term play, and it takes time. And if you're AC, plumbing, dentist, financial planning, things that are really, you got saturated markets, it's a lot more difficult. But if you're in some other industries, if you're a funeral home or you're a private school or a Christian school or a synagogue or whatever, and you've got fewer pieces or fewer bits of competition, then yes, organic search results would be great. And so a lot of that involves, okay, what terms are people looking for? And that's a whole other story. But Google gives that available. They make that available to you, so you can go in there and see what terms are people looking for that's relevant for my business, and what is that search volume. So Google will tell you got 1,000 people searching for private schools, Fort Worth, a month, and then private school, even the singular and plural can be different, but so the results can be a little bit different. But you want to be able to have that onto your website, but also on the back end of your website, where the website's essentially built, is kind of how you could say it. But that's the part that really communicates more with Google of exactly what each of those pages are about. So you asked about 3, those are at least 2 with the organic, with the Google search for the map section. Those would be the big things that I can think of. A third, I'm trying to think of a third one really to be able to focus on. But that should be enough to really kind of get people moving forward with those 2, certainly.
And then one other question. I think you mentioned it earlier, but um, somebody else brought it up and they asked about like Google AdWord bidding. And is that the same thing as trying to get on the first page regarding certain topics? If you wanted to just speak to that for a quick second.
Absolutely. So the Google AdWords, same thing as the pay-per-click, and that is your ad space. That is, I got to get out of this. I got to figure out how to get out of this. Whoops. This section, essentially at the top where it says ad. And so that's your AdWords or your pay-per-click, however you want to term that. So that is all based on bids. And so if you have something that's really specific for your business and you want to target that particular term, yeah, it would probably be cheaper. But if you have something extremely broad, and this is say, here I just typed out the word financial planning Fort Worth. At the very top, it's kind of hard to see, but right above where it says the Moore Group at Morgan Stanley, right above that, it says about 45 million results. And that's a lot. That's a lot of competition. So when you're targeting a broad term like financial planning, it's going to cost you more for that click than it would be for 401k rollover Fort Worth or something like that. So that you are bidding, you're bidding based on what these ads are worth and your positioning. So you want to spend $1,000 a month, Google will look at that as essentially you're spending about $33 a day, as how Google kind of breaks that down for you. So if you spend, let's say that one particular for financial planning Fort Worth, that one click could be $30. Well, you just spend it if somebody clicks on that one particular ad one time. So, and it fluctuates a little bit. It's not the exact same consistently, but it is. You're bidding for that process. Being at the top is more important than being at the bottom for those bottom ads at the bottom of the page one or even page 2, page 3. You don't want to be on those. You're not going to get the right types of clicks that you would be looking for. So certainly that top position is, or the top 3 positions is really where you want to be. But yes, it all is based off of bidding. That's correct.
Okay. And then another question on specific wording. Let me just find it. I think Ramesh asked, regarding your content is king slide, he asked, is content definition / language super important of how well your content can be crawled and indexed?
Okay. Oh, that's great. So it's extremely important as far as like the content, but having content in addition to like a particular location. If you are, if you're based in DFW and this is your market, that's a different deal than if you're trying to go nationwide or globally even. So of course it's going to be a lot more difficult. But if you're Fort Worth based or Tarrant County based, and this is where your business is and your focus is that, it's a different kind of a deal. So you're essentially taking a business, taking the terms that people would be searching for, what we call our keywords, things that people would type up into Google. So at the very top here on this particular slide, it says financial planning Fort Worth. That's a keyword or a term that somebody would typically type in. So taking, and so if you're in that industry, like Leah Testa, who's on this call. Leah is in financial planning. So financial planning Fort Worth would be a major thing for them and her company. So having the city along with a keyword is crucial, truly. And having that into the website, having it early on into the website. So let's just say you're on your homepage. Having information that talks, it may sit there and say XYZ wealth management company provides financial planning, blah, blah, blah for Fort Worth. And so your keywords are at the front of your text on your homepage. And in any internal pages, all of those keywords, they just kind of fit in there. But what each of those web pages are about, like your homepage, your main page on your website, where the back end of that is the important information. So you want that information as well to coincide with what you have on the website itself, on the main page, if that makes sense. So to back up for one moment, your website, let's just say you go to your homepage of your website, that content there, those keywords that people would be looking for needs to be on the back end of the website as well for that particular page. I hope that makes sense there. If you don't know your keywords and what people would be looking for, Google, if you typed in, you could type in pay-per-click advertising or something just general like that. That's going to show you the keywords. And you can go in there and you can guess kind of what some of your keywords are, and then Google's actually going to provide you what some terms are that people are looking for that you may not have thought of. And then when you run a campaign like that, there are negative terms. So we're working with a company that does grease traps. And so like for restaurants, and they go and clean out the grease traps. Well, they were getting found initially when we first started for Grease the Movie. Well, that doesn't work. They don't want to pay for a click for Grease the Movie, of course. So that's a negative term. So we go in there and we put that information in there so they are not found when somebody's typing in Grease the Movie. We don't want those ads coming up. And so building your negative lists and building your positive lists for what you do want to be found for is important. Did that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Perfect. And that also tied into Bill's question where he was asking, is there a way to keep my ad from appearing whenever my website appears at the top of the normal search results to not risk wasting a paid click? So that kind of plays into it, but do you have any other advice for that?
So saying if you have a pay-per-click ad, but then you also show up in the map section and the organic section to maybe have the ads playing at the same time or being there. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So is there a way to keep my ad from appearing whenever my website appears at the top? Yeah.
Okay. So the only way, if you have here, actually, this is a good example. I'm just going to use this one. On this particular page, it says, so where it says Google Map My Business, and I have that kind of squared off there. Right underneath at the very first top listing there says AspenWealthMGMT.com. Well, if you look up right above that, it says Aspen, in the middle of that map, Aspen Wealth Management. And then if they were running ads, for instance, and so the more group at the very top, and that says, say that ad's there are a couple of ways to look at it. One, yes, you're spending money to be there. So somebody's going to click on that ad potentially, and it's going to cost you some money. But at the same time, it's also important because you're building trust and you're building your name and your brand. So people are seeing that particular company over and over again. So if you have your ad, you're ranking in the Google My Business listing, and even in that part that's beneath the map section, you can have 1, 2, 3, 5. I mean, you could have multiple listings in the organic search results. And how cool is that? That means you pushed off, if you have 4 listings, you pushed off 3 additional competitors, or 4 competitors essentially. So you've got 4 listings. So it's all about you. And that's a really good thing to be, a really good spot to be. So I'd say, like for me, I'd leave something like that. It's just, you're building that, your brand, and people are seeing that over and over again.
Cool. Let's see. I think we have 2 more questions in the chat. Sorry, what did you say?
If you have the funds for it, like if it makes sense to continue to bid for that space, that's perfect.
Perfect. All right, and Bill, feel free to follow up with that if you had any other questions along that line. But the next question we had is from Julie. She said that earlier when you were talking about how you said a vendor, not Google, can do remarketing banners that follow you on different sites. What kind of vendors do that? Do you have any examples?
Okay, so it used to be only available to, like, to the larger companies, but mom and pop businesses, like I was saying, that they're able to do that now. So different companies can run those kinds of campaigns. You can do, I mean, it's something that we run and we manage those campaigns, so it's great. Or you can do a Google search even and put display advertising management or something along those lines. And so there are companies who will manage those display ads for you on your behalf, and they get your ads out front and center. And like I said, you can pinpoint specific addresses that for what you want. And it could be, I mean, whatever particular business. There's a company that we're working with in Southlake, and there are 2 or 3 different large companies that are they're based in Southlake, and one's in Westlake, and they wanted us to pinpoint these ads directly for them, for those ads at those particular places, so they would be seen and get more business potentially that way.
Okay. Julie, did that answer? Do you have any additional questions with that?
If you have a name, do you have a name of a particular vendor that does that?
Yeah, that runs those ads for you.
Yeah.
That manages it. Yeah. So we do. I mean, that's so that would be a recommendation, certainly.
Okay.
And what's nice, because they really are inexpensive. It's nothing like a pay-per-click, and the management on pay-per-click is a whole lot more involved. And so you pay a whole lot more typically to a company to manage those kinds of ads. But these are, because they're inexpensive, you're just able to get them into those exact spots where you want them. Plus, people who visited your website and they leave, you want to be able to get those ads in front of those people to bring them back to it. So that's great. But yeah, I mean, it's something we manage, but then typing into Google and display ad management companies or something like that, you would get some great results from that. Sure. You bet.
Okay. Thanks.
You bet.
Perfect. And then just a quick follow-up to Bill. We just clarified that there are certain, vendors that can do that management, but is there any way to automatically manage with settings on Google, or do you have to outsource to a vendor to have them managed?
For the display ads themselves?
Yeah, for ads and for, when ads appear and when your website appears and not having them duplicated. Is that all done through a management company?
Okay. And then the main thing I'm just trying to make sure I understand is either display ads that we're talking about, like with Julie just a moment ago, or if we're talking about like the organic ads, excuse me, the pay-per-click AdWords campaigns that you see at the very top. So I just wanted to specify, I'm assuming he was talking about the
I think Bill is talking about, the pay-per-click.
Okay. And so, yes, a couple things. You can manage them yourselves, but here's the thing about that is time. And somebody goes in there and just clicks on these ads. Let's just say you're not able to really manage it, and you have that grease trap company, and somebody's going in and typing in grease the movie, and you're not seeing that, and you're being charged $5 every time somebody goes in there and types that word in and clicks on those ads. And you're not seeing it to be able to put a stop to it. You could be out X amount of dollars, of course, by that. So you want somebody who can actually spend the time and effort to be able to manage it. There are companies, and I know companies who have gone in and managed their processes themselves. They've got somebody in-house or who's done it before, or they've got somebody dedicated to it and they can really focus on it and pay attention, make the adjustments. But it is a learning process. I mean, there's a lot involved. You can go to Google School for this, truly. So there's a lot there. But the one last piece you could do, and I don't recommend it, but if you do search, you may find this, but it's AdSense with Google. The problem with this is essentially, basically, you're putting your ads, you're spending money. Let's just say you $1,000 a month, $500 a month, but you give Google the money to manage your ads for you. The problem with that is that's putting the fox in the hen house. So Google makes money by getting people to click on your ads. And so, and they're not going to purposely try to cheat you, but this is all run by software. There's not somebody behind the scenes that's making these adjustments for you. So it's just you're going to probably get some benefit, but not really the kind of benefit that you want. So that's Google AdSense. You could look that information up if you want to, and just kind of take a peek at it. But it's something I would not recommend somebody going down that path.
Thank you. And then kind of the last question that we have, you were talking about it a little bit, but I'm assuming that all of the services you're talking about are through your Go Hire, are available on there. Is there differences between, do you have any, Frank asked if you had any like consulting services, or is it purely management of the ads? Can you just talk a little bit about that for a second?
Sure. So on certain aspects, so there are a lot of things that we do consulting for businesses, and I've done quite a bit of that. But at the same time, so some things like running an AdWords campaign, there's so much involved that it wouldn't make sense to be as a consultant to kind of oversee kind of the processes. It's going to take a whole lot of time and effort. And so typically having somebody to handle that for you would be the ideal situation. the Google My Business listing, you can consult with somebody with that, and they can look at the whole scope and say, there's some adjustments that you can make, and here are some things you can do. And okay, here's some of the writing you can do, here's the content, here's how we're going to post that information, here's some of the keywords that we're going to need to target. So they can really work with you on in that phase. But when you're talking about AdWords, that would be one extremely difficult situation. I would not feel comfortable ever. It would be too long of a play to really kind of coach somebody or direct somebody down a path that way.
Well, I think that kind of brings us to time today. I know there was a bunch of questions today, so I hope everybody got a few of their questions answered. We did record this session, and Michael did give us approval to send out the slides. And so